It's Tuesday, and welcome to Tiltcast Shortz. New show that wasn't into bear intimacy. I'm Nauss.
I'm Jason.
And wouldn't you know, we're talking about Baldur's Gate.
Yeah.
But you know what? Speaking of bear sex, did you ever do the bear sex thing? Or were you also a fairly normal and well-adjusted individual that did not need to see bear sex?
I was a fairly well-adjusted individual.
Yeah. So while we're talking about Baldur's Gate, because obviously, like Lyrian comes up all the time, right? We had the controversy about AI assets used for building stuff. Well, Baldur's Gate's still super popular, and HBO is doing an adaptation of that for a series, which actually is pretty cool if you ask me. So HBO officially greenlit a live-action drama series based on the game. Craig Mazin, The Last of Us, and Chernobyl will serve as a creator, writer, and executive producer and showrunner. It is in collaboration with HBO and Hasbro Entertainment. So Hasbro owns Dungeons & Dragons via Wizards of the Coast, and then Chris Perkins, who's the head of story for Dungeons & Dragons at Wizards of the Coast, is attached as the creative consultant. So Last of Us was like adapted to the original plot. This is not going to be adapted to any of those plots, right? It sort of is. It's going to be attached to the plot of 3, but it's the events after 3. And we already know that Larian's not doing a sequel to that game. So it's not going to be that story. It'll be part of that story, but it's going to be completely different writing. It's going to focus on what happens after the Illithid crisis. So they'll have a mix of characters from the game, as well as some brand new people, which actually makes sense. Really curious, though, what do they do for your character, right? Like, because the hero of that story is basically you. So what are they going to do for that? Just introduce a new character, and that's just going to be the character that did the thing canonically with whatever happened according to Larian?
Yeah, or do the whole, like, this hero just disappeared afterward or something.
Yeah, and when I was talking about, like, Larian, so Larian hasn't really said much, but they have a very limited involvement in it. Essentially, what's his name, Mason, I guess. Yeah. He talked to Sven, right? To talk about like what was going on with it, but it's very loosely tied to that story. So I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of involvement from Larian.
Well, no, they're basically just going to have to,
they spent like 5 to 7 years on Baldur's Gate 3. I'm sure they're ready to move on from that.
Yeah. At this point, basically whoever the writers are, they're just going to have to decide, which ending they feel like serves as a better canonical ending for whatever story they want to tell next is, and just go from there, which, to be honest, is perfectly acceptable, because there's like 5 or 6 technical endings, but there's dozens of variations on those endings.
Right.
So, like, as far as like who all was alive at the end of it, et cetera, et cetera. So, they'll just kind of have to pick something that makes sense for the story they want to tell. And I'm fine with that.
Yeah. I think, long story short, though, I know a lot of people were upset about Last of Us, and I don't know that it was all Mason's fault, right? Like, I think the issue with Last of Us is a lot of us didn't like the removal of Joel from that story, and that was a product of the writers from the game, right? So they had chosen to go a different direction with Last of Us 2, and focus more on other characters rather than Joel, and I think a lot of people, myself included, identified a lot with the father figure, and the loss of that figure is a whole reason for the controversy of that series to begin with. So, like, did he do a pretty decent job of the series as a whole? I would say yes. I think as long as the writing is good for whatever story they go for, I think the universe itself supports that. And if they focus on cool adventures in that world, I don't think anybody will be upset, right? Again, Last of Us, if you want to focus on why a lot of people, like the ratings dropped off pretty hard for 2, because if you weren't a gamer, right, you didn't realize that you're going to lose Joel. And of course, Joel was central to that first story. And Joel is kind of the hook that holds on to that whole thing. So anyways, long story short, what I'm getting at is the issue here is not, I don't think, the series adapter. I think that he'll do a fine job. I just really want to see where they take that story.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I guess other things that are pretty cool though is we've got, he's interested in finding the original voice and motion capture cast of Baldur's Gate 3 to see if they can participate in the adaptation. It is stated that he has over 1,000 hours logged into Baldur's Gate 3, so it's fairly clear that he's a fan. Again, that's why I was like, I don't know that it's going to be a bad thing. He seems like he's a mega fan of the whole series, and he's still got to finish up Last of Us Season 3. So it's got a little while before this thing's going to be out. Maybe me and you are in our 50s by the time this releases, because this is going to be a lot of production work to make this a thing.
Yeah, true.
So anybody watching this right now, we may not even be doing a podcast by the time that comes out, or we're moving on to bigger and better things. Who knows? But,
who knows, man? But I know of all the video games I could think of to, like do a show based on what, things that have the possibility of happening within a game. I think this one's a fairly safe, smart choice, just for the fact that, there are so many variations that, I don't know that you can necessarily make a really bad choice.
I don't think so.
How to continue the story.
I don't think so either.
But that said, tell us what you think. Leave us a comment. Find us on tiltcast.com, where you'll find both these new shorts in audio form, as well as full episodes of our podcast, the Tiltcast. Search for us on iTunes and Spotify. Subscribe there, and come back on Thursday for more news.
All right. We'll see y'all.